Well, hello, Gary. How are you doing?
Hello, Lisa. I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Great. I love your background.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, pretty amazing technology that I can actually do this without a green screen. It's kind of a kind of cool feature, you know.
Right?
So a permanent shameless plug throughout the entire interview.
Exactly.
hmm
So, how are you liking it out there in Long Island?
Uh, I'm
Is it pretty
good.
crazy?
I've kind of grown up here all my life, so I don't know a whole lot else. Though I spent about 2 weeks in Hawaii, and I think that would do really nice. But you know, I love my home.
So, what's it been like in Long Island while the quarantine's been going on?
Well, my kids' schools are shut down. I lost my job. Uh, so I mean, it's been kind of interesting, but not as bad as I would have thought initially. Um, the boys are holding up really well. My wife's been really keeping on top of them as far as their schoolwork and such goes, and basically, I've been keeping, I've been trying to spend as much time with them as I can. And at the same time, both my parents wound up with COVID-19 and both wound up in the hospital. My father was almost didn't make it. Um,
Well, thank God
so
he's
I've been
alive.
trying to take care of their affairs while they've been hospitalized. They both moved on to a rehab now. But my mom's at least 2 weeks off from being out, and my dad is probably about 2 months off from being out. So I've been keeping myself busy with that. And of course, we have the debut of our uh, very long-awaited album that has finally come out, and I've been keeping myself real busy with this, just doing every other ancillary thing that has to do with being in a band and trying to promote a record that isn't directly tied to recording that record. So it's been very busy.
Right. I know before when you would record an album, you would record it, you'd send out press, you do the interviews, and then you go on tour to promote the
Yep.
new music. But it's different now, and that was just a few months ago. So, how much has that changed for you now?
Uh, it hasn't changed anything for me actually, and that was actually part of the impetus behind putting it out right now. Although this is, I mean, this Lisa, this album is 32 years in the making. Basically, it's our debut
Yeah,
album. We came out we came out in 1988, and this is our first album. In the past we put out two demo tapes. Uh, More recently an EP, but when I say recently, that's still 12 years ago. Um, and basically, this album is those two demo tapes now. Basically, they're all the material that's on them, or about 80% of the material that's on them, have their core roots in what we were doing back in 1988 through 1992. Um, so, but to get to your specific question, we're not really we didn't Joey and I didn't go back into this to really even become necessarily a full band uh again. We came back into this to record the album that we always dreamed we could and that we always wanted to hear for ourselves, and to get out to the world and out to the universe basically, and for ourselves, the album that we felt were shorted on, that we just never finished, that we never did. And basically, that was the intent. The intent never was necessarily even to um, create a whole band and tour around that, and that kind of thing. So um, basically, the the idea behind it suited itself in a lot of ways to this particular time, in an unfortunate time in our world.
Right.
Um, we Like I said, we normal, and just like you said, normally a band would put out a release, promote it, create the merch, create the products, and then tour in order to promote that album and sell their merch and that kind of thing. We
Right.
never really had any intent on touring, or for the most fundamentally, even putting together a full band. Joey recorded all the strings on this. Daniel Clefman, who did all the drum parts, he did them 12 years ago, 13 years ago, actually. So I mean, he's a jazz player fundamentally. He hasn't played
Wow.
metal in probably since us 13 years ago. So the ultimate goal for this really was to release a recorded product, and so it suits us kind of fine. And in fact, it's actually, interestingly enough, it's actually advantageous, because we find ourselves in a very unique position that all the other touring acts, all the other known bigger bands that are in that usual slot and situation where, okay, we put out the album, then we do the promotion, then we do the tour,
Right.
have pushed themselves off. Basically, the labels have pushed them back, and are holding on releases that normally we would be in a giant tide with. But basically, kind of gates opened up for us and a carpet was sort of rolled out, because we decided, you know what, this is the best time for us to release this, because first off, we want to give this out, kind of, let the world hear it finally. It's been something that's been sitting with us for more than 2/3 of our individual lives.
Right.
And but we're not hampered by the fact that the timing sucks. The timing for this, for us specifically, is actually really good. And we fundamentally, as much as it sucks for all of us, we kind of have a captive audience.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
You
it's
know,
just
I mean, I think
crazy.
there's a lot of people out there right now, kind of hoping for something new. We're very cinematic and fantasy driven band, so there's a lot of escapism behind what we do.
Right.
So I think it's actually an extremely good time for us to release it, and that was a lot of why we chose right now. Because basically, this was done almost 4 years ago, and then for various reasons, a lot of them having to do with funds and timing and things like that. We just kind of backburned it again. There was only one song that still uh, had a little bit of retooling that we wanted to do, and so when I approached Joey with the idea of, hey, you know what, the whole world is kind of stuck at home right now. This may be the best time to release this album ever, because we don't have to tour. What do you think? And he was kind of like, you know what? Yeah, you may be right. And so we then approached. Do you know Munzie from Skateboard Marketing?
No, I sure don't.
No. Okay. We approached. He does our radio promotion.
Uh-huh.
And John Freeman, who does our PR. We
Right.
approached the two of them and we said, "Hey, look, we're thinking about dropping this thing now. What do you guys think?" And both of them kind of thought, yeah, this is probably a really good idea. It's a very unique time, and that was it. That was kind of the decision. So we
Why
pushed
did
forward.
it take why did it take 32 years? That's an awful long time.
Uh, yes, yes, it is. Well, we put out the two demo tapes relatively within relatively reasonable timing from each other. The first one was in 1988. We released the second one, or no, excuse me, the first one is in 1989. Second one was in the beginning of 91. And then basically we shopped those things around. Maelstrom became, off the second demo tape, which is called "This Battle to Make History, Yet History Never Comes," Maelstrom became pretty well known around the underground scene. It garnished us a lot of press. We became sort of cultish. It's actually a pretty sought after tape right now, cassette tape right now. And basically after that, we sort of got, we sort of started to get grunged out of existence, I'll say.
Oh yeah,
The
grunge. Yeah.
the metal scene started to really kind of change a lot. It was there was a lot of shift towards Seattle grunge and also a lot of shift towards extreme death metal. In fact, the band Suffocation from Long Island, one of, if not their first show, they played with us at Sundance. And so, we got to see Suffocation in their infancy. And, we kind of looked at each other, Joe and I, was like, what the hell is that? That's like the heaviest voice I've ever heard in my life.
Right.
And listening to Frank do what he was doing. And, at that point, it was just sort of like what we were doing was from, especially from a label sense, because that back then everything was all about trying to get signed. Everything was about trying to get signed. Although we had done very, very well in the underground and had become really popular with that cassette, we just never got the break. We never got signed. So it started to fizzle and die.
Yeah.
And then by 94, our drummer quit around 92. We wound up getting a new replacement, a guy named Elliot Hoffman, which is absolutely fantastic drummer. He's actually the drummer for the band Car Bomb. But he started to drive things in sort of a different direction. We started to change, some infighting took place, and eventually they realized that, they wanted to go in a very different direction, and I was no longer the right fit for what they wanted to do. The whole idea behind Maelstrom sort of was fading.
Yeah.
So that basically terminated us back then. Years later, Joey and I maintained our very, very close friendship. And years later, we had done a few things together, actually, some different businesses and such. And, but both of us would still talk about Maelstrom and that we never finished what we really, wanted to do with this thing. And around 2005, he was a partner in a music school. And he knew this guy, this drummer named Daniel Clefman, who was a teacher at his school, and he decided, we would still, bring up Maelstrom every so often, and he said, you know what, I got a kid that wants to play with me, and he's really good, and he can do this. I think this might be the time to resurrect that Maelstrom as a recording project and get that album that we really wanted done. And
Wow.
so that started in 2005, and basically during that process, we got our chops up. Took about a year to get all the chops up and the songs retooled and rewritten the way we wanted it all. And then we went down to Tampa to record the drums, specifically with a guy named Greg Marchek, who had recorded a lot our stuff in the past.
Uh-huh.
And we wanted to specifically work with him because he was just masterful at getting a natural drum sound. And while that was happening during that recording process, Joey got accepted to medical school outside of the country. So basically, we recorded all the drums, but the recording of the guitar got put on kibosh because basically once you get that kind of call and you're accepted, you got like 3 weeks to go. And that's basically what happened there. So that got killed for another couple of years. Then he came back, recorded. He came back. We decided in the interim, while he was capable of doing it on times when he would come back, we decided the full-length album wasn't possible. So we picked 3 songs off of it and put out an EP. That was done in 2008. That did very well as far as, again, in the underground scene and on radio and that kind of thing. It got a lot of hype, but again, we fell short of the full-length album. And then eventually we just recorded it, and then finally got it. And then 4 years ago, we were going to release it 4 years ago, and then funds just fell out, and we couldn't do it the right way that we wanted to. Sandy happened, and lost my house for a while during Sandy.
Wow.
A lot of crap, basically. Just life got in the way, and that kind of thing. And then
Right.
but we still had most of it, 99% of it done. And then basically, when this happened, we just, Joey decided, all right, and I decided, all right, let's do this. And, we finished off that last little bit that still needed to get retooled. And, brought on the team that we wanted to bring on, PR wise and radio wise, and with the social media help and that kind of thing. And we are doing it finally. So
Yay.
that's that's as best as I can answer as to why it took so long. But we've been milking these songs for 3 decades. So I mean, but here it is, in its real form as one complete body of work.
Do you plan on performing them live anytime?
Well, I would absolutely love to. Unfortunately, Joey has kind of debilitating tinnitus, so it kind of precludes him from playing live. We're looking into possible possible in-ear monitor tech, muted drums, that kind of thing. I personally would love to do this live. Uh, I don't think we'll ever go and bang out a tour, but I would love to do some specialty shows. There's some festivals that are sort of tailored to what we do over in Europe. I would love to do some gigs in Canada because I hear the fan base there is just incredible. And I sort of have a dream of taking a vacation on 70,000 tons of metal and being able to play on that boat
Exactly.
when cruise ships are allowed to sail again. So those kinds of things, Lisa, I would absolutely love to do, but I don't really plan on grinding it out. I would do some local shows also, but I don't really plan on grinding out a tour. I'm going to be 50 next year, so that's just not really what I want to be doing with my life. But like I said, there's some specialty shows that I would absolutely love to play. A lot of it, though, is really based on Joey's health.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Now, what was the concept of the album when you started putting it together versus at the end? Was it different? Did it change?
I would say like any project, especially one that is created on and off over the course of 3 decades. It absolutely changes and evolves. Yes, but basically, excuse me. Basically, it all started with the song "Predestined," which is the 9th song on the track out of on the album, 9th track on the album out of 10. That was the first song we ever wrote, and basically, when I got that music from Joey and John, our original drummer, a guy named John Coltai, when I got it from Joey Loads and John Coltai in the summer of '88, I started writing some lyrics down that I thought were kind of cool and fit the thing, and worked in a chorus and worked in the verses and that kind of thing. And after I sat with the words for a little while, a day or two, I kind of realized that there's a story here. There's I could build a story around this, and I've always been very into fantasy stories. My mom kind of grew up. I grew up my mom reading just about every fantasy author under the sun, and she got me into Tolkien and Piers Anthony and things like that. And she's much more rabid reader than I am, but I was, I'm into fantasy kind of stuff, and I love the Lord of the Rings movies and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I thought after reading what I had penned in Predestined that that there's a story here, but it's the end of a story. It might not be the very end of the story, but it's pretty close. So I need the beginning. I need the backstory. What brought this character to this point in his life, and who is he, and why is he, and that kind of thing. And then
Right.
basically, from that point, the next 2 songs that we wrote were "Arise" and a song that is called "Bloody Remains." And on the demo tape from '88, it's called "Bloody Remains," but that has been taken out of the equation and has been replaced with the song called "Army from Ash." Structurally, it's very similar. Riff wise, it's very different. Lyrically, theme wise, it's very similar. It has to do with the creation of this of an army from basically risen from the dead. So fundamentally, it has to do and what this particular character is going through as he is one of the only survivors of an apocalyptic war, and he's effectively uh, a greater god's avatar on Earth, and what he's going through as he walks the Earth, and now is charged with creating an army from nothing, essentially. Um, so Army from Ash takes over what was Bloody Remains, and that happens a couple times throughout the album where a song has been scrapped and taken over by something else. But basically, those two songs gave me my out of a 10 chapter book, let's say, those two songs gave me chapters 1 and 2, and so I had 1 and 2 and 9, and the rest of the story kind of evolved from there. The difference, I'd say, from early on till now is that certain things that I've gone through and certain things that I've come to believe in my life have helped develop the ideology of the story, and what ultimately the uh, the allegorical sense of the story actually means. It has a very Gnostic kind of ideology in taking the difference of rules-based dogmatic religion versus the deeper inner soul and the inner spirit, and how they conflict against and, and compare and contrast with each other,
Yeah.
are basically that's kind of the allegorical sense of the story, and that we are all fundamentally a god and a part of all part of a greater god when we all kind of come together as one universal spirit, versus the control and manipulation of dogmatic rules-based religion. That's the allegorical story.
Okay.
um and yeah, that evolved over time, as you become more, ideally more wise, and you want to, you experience more things. I was able to put more of my adulthood into what's really going on in this. Additionally, um I'm a master mason. I'm a Freemason.
Okay.
So there's aspects to the story that now utilize things that I've learned and things that I've gone through in Masonry that fit these characters very well. And so that is there in both word and visual symbolism, which obviously were not there when I was 17, because I didn't become a master mason till I was in my mid 40s.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now that everything's done and you're doing your interviews and everything, looking back, what do you think was probably the hardest part in making the album for you?
The hardest part in making the album,
Yeah.
uh, cash.
Yeah. Just the funds. There
Funds,
wasn't
yeah,
like there
definitely,
wasn't a
definitely.
song that was like harder.
I mean, well, aside from that,
Oh,
um, staying staying with it was really, I mean, even harder than cash, I guess, because there were plenty times, many times when it just made absolutely no sense at all to keep going and doing and trying to do this. I
uh,
mean, I mean, fundamentally, you know, I mean, look, for me and Joey, it's a dream coming to fruition finally. But
right.
from an outside perspective, there's plenty of people that would just look at it and say, "Well, that's kind of stupid." I mean, it's kind of dumb. It's an album that you wrote 32 years, fundamentally wrote 80% of it 32 years ago. You never finished it. Keep going. Even our closest buddies kind of break our balls about things like that. But at the same time, I'll be 50 next year, and it's still, at the same time, it's kind of cool. I have plenty of high school friends that have been, on Facebook, just blowing up, congratulating me that, thank God you did this, and thank God you're actually giving me hope to do something, because I always wanted to, whatever, take dance lessons or sing myself, and I never had the guts to do it. And now, that I'm stuck at home, I'm gonna take lessons. You know what I'm saying? Like, so,
Right.
hopefully,
Yes.
and and in that respect, it's great because it's inspired a few people, or, in that respect. And as an artist, I think that that's something that, you know, you certainly hope for, and, can't ask for much more in that respect. But it was always really important for us to leave behind uh, the legacy that we had conceived of, but couldn't execute back when we were kids.
Right.
And, you know, we've done it. But I guess the answer to your question is the hardest part was staying with it, because, like I said, there was many times when it just made no sense to do it. And, you know, Joey and or I quit fundamentally multiple times, and the other one would just eventually drag the other back in, and, just say, I'm not going to let you give up, and the other would, kick and scream, and finally we'd come around, and
Right.
do it. So,
So now that
and
this,
with the two hardest parts.
now you're gonna look forward to the future and maybe put out another one. Are you planning on putting out another one? But is it going to
This
take
is not
another 32
every
years?
I've had 8 interviews today, and all 8 have asked me the same thing. I got to tell you, Lisa, this thing's like 21 hours old right now, as far as the world is concerned. I'm going to live in this moment right now. Um,
Well,
uh,
okay. Well, I guess a better question would be, what do you see in the future?
um, well, right now it's really all about, pushing this, getting the merch that it deserves, because every song has its own piece of artwork. So, and there's a lot of cool stuff that's been created. I worked with, including myself, 5 different artists to create all of this stuff. Each song, like I said, has its own piece of artwork. And everybody I know, a personal level. Uh, Chris Kalin is my son's godfather. He did 2 of the pieces in this. Jan Urland is the guy who does our covers. He did 3 of the pieces for this. Um, my friend, a guy who I used to work with, Kevin Hooker, did 1 piece. I did several pieces. Joey's niece did a piece. So there's a tremendous amount of artwork involved in this. Like I said, each song has its own visual to drive the story and the narrative forward. So, I think we could create some cool merch around that. Ultimately, I would absolutely love to put this out as a as kind of like an art book, coupled with, with the lyrics and the visuals and the disc. I would absolutely love to do that. So there's a lot right now that has to do with this particular release. In the,
Mhm.
I guess, medium term, um, I wouldn't mind doing something that is recording wise somewhat more conceivable rather than another album. I wouldn't mind doing an EP of like maybe 3 songs, and I would probably, honestly, I'd probably do covers, and at least 2 of them would be sort of left of center covers, kind of like what Disturbed did with Sound of Silence.
Okay.
Back in the back when we were doing this in the late '80s, we used to do a cover of Billy Joel's Pressure. I would
Yeah.
love to do that again. There's another track that I've been kicking around that I would love to do. And hi, Mikey. It's my son, Michael. Um, you can say hello.
Hello. Hi.
It's okay. All right. Um, so so anyway, yeah. So that's sort of what I would see in the medium term in terms of recording again.
Mhm.
In the longer term, our original bassist, we're still friends with all the guys that were in the band, and our original bassist, John Modell, who also is in the band Car Bomb, he just found uh, this week, actually, or last week, um, 2 things that are just absolutely amazing to hear. He found the audio for our second show ever, our second live show ever. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun, kind of like taking that audio and cobbling together some video to go with it and putting that up. And he also found every song we ever wrote after our second demo, which I
Oh,
think is
wow.
about 6 tracks. So all of that stuff, is we have access to now, a recording of,
Oh, that's nice.
which is fantastic. I mean, it's literally a 1992, basement style recording. We press and play and record on an old style, tape recorder, but
Yeah.
it's absolutely perfectly clear enough to make out all of the old riffs and all the old songs. And there's a lot of great material on that. It'll have to be retooled and reworked and stuff, but we have the core base of probably half another album, and it's all still 30 years old.
Hey, what works is
Yeah,
what works, right?
exactly. I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Have you listened to the album?
I have.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Would you, if you didn't know, would you say, "Oh wow, this stuff is definitely 30 years old"?
No, I would not say it was 30 years old.
All right, so that's
Well,
great.
yes. Yes.
So that means that there's a level of timelessness to what we've done,
Right.
which is awesome. If it doesn't sound dated and it's literally 32 years old, I'm happy. Thank you.
It's great, and you're welcome.
Cool.
So now, are you going to make any videos? I know that you were saying that, a lot of your stuff is very visual.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've done 2 lyric videos. One was done by somebody else, and I sort of helped storyboard it. The other one is for the song 13, and that was Army from Ash. The other one is for the song 13 Within a Circle, which was the second single that we released. Basically, we released our second single 10 days ago. And basically now the full length is out. But that lyric video is up, and it's on YouTube, and it's circulating around Facebook and stuff. And I did that whole thing myself. Basically,
Okay.
I was sort of part of what I tasked myself with while this whole COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, shut in kind of situation was going on. I've been a graphic artist for 30 some odd years, but I deal mostly with stills. Um, I decided to start teaching myself Premiere and After Effects, and so I did that whole video myself. And yeah, there's absolutely plans to do more. Absolutely.
So when people go to download your music, where can they go to? Everywhere?
Yeah, I mean it's on every absolutely, it's on every major site and minor site, plenty that I never even heard of. The I would say the best place to get it is our direct website. If you want, really high quality waves downloaded, um, and the whole lyric sheet and everything is all there. Um, that you can download in a PDF form, and it's actually set up to print on 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. So you can actually look at it like that. Um, but other than that, Bandcamp is a great place to get our stuff. But we're also on Apple Music and Spotify and all that. Obviously, if you can help support what we're doing, it will make things a lot easier. There was a lot of funds that were spent on this project over the course of 3 decades, and besides that, getting some funds for what we've done certainly helps to offset newer things that we want to do with
Right.
respects to this material itself and future recordings. I mean, obviously, a lot of that kind of stuff hinges on I mean, Joey and I are fortunate in the sense that we both have careers outside of this to help
Of
fund
course.
this. But
Absolutely.
right now, my career is on hold. But you know, and it's okay. It's okay. It's actually with all the things that have been taking place, it was actually it may have been a blessing for right now. And also the government has been very generous with respects to the additional, things that they've given with respects to added unemployment and that kind of thing. I've been fortunate enough to be able to get that approved and stuff. I know there are plenty of people out there that have not, and that absolutely sucks and is really, really hard. But
Yes.
I've been somewhat fortunate in that respect. So I really appreciate that.
I'm old.
Pardon me?
CD in my hand. I'm old. I like the CD in my hand. I like to buy the CD
It,
and look
it,
at it.
it's
You know,
it's absolutely coming. It's just not here yet. That we put a hard date on this for the 22nd because if we didn't, it could be another 3 years. So it's just that hard copy is just not ready yet. Right now it's digital and it's out there and it's out to the world and it's been released and I'm happily here doing interviews. Um, but all of those things will help support and push forward uh, the creation of the physical and the things that old school people really want to be able to
right.
hold touch it and stuff. I mean, we made about 100. We made 100 of these, all right, which is what's called a J card.
Uh-huh.
All right,
I see. Yeah.
which was fundamentally just the disc inside a cardboard pocket, basically. They were
Yeah.
really just for the 25 or so radio stations that our radio producer wanted. Our radio promoter wanted to send hard copy, that he still sends hard copy to.
Mm.
At least 50 or so of those have sold to mostly really, really rabid fans in Germany. That just were demanding that they have something physical to buy. And
Okay.
they've some of them have offered way more than what we were asking for just to get them. So I mean, in that respect, like the cultish style fans are just amazing. And that's really what we're hoping for to develop and build are a group and a core set of fans that really want these kinds of things because we want to make them. It's just if they're going to sit in a garage, it doesn't make sense for us to make them.
Exactly. Well, thanks for saying. I know we had a difficult time getting in the schedule
We did.
today
We
with
had some
all the
technical difficulties,
technical
but
issues we had, but
you know what? We saw it through, and we
got it
we made it
done.
happen. We made it happen. Absolutely, we got it done. Heck, I'm not going to let an extra 48 minutes worth of technical problems stop. You know, I worked for 32 years to make this thing happen. What's 42 minutes?
It's absolutely nothing.
Right.
Exactly. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And it was good talking to you and stay safe out there in Long Island.
Thank you
And
as well, and I really appreciate the interview. Thank you so much, Lisa. All right.
thank you. Thank you. Stay metal, my friend.
Yeah. All right. Have a great day. Bye now.
You too. Bye.